You clumsy little fool, Marcus hissed, his fingers digging into her upper arm with enough force to make her gasp. Do you have any idea how much that bottle cost? Around them, the charity gala continued without pause. Orchestra music swelled through the ballroom of the Belmont Hotel, and women in designer gowns laughed with men in tailored suits, their conversations flowing like the expensive wine being served on silver trays. No one looked their way. No one ever did. I'm sorry, Cassandra whispered, her voice barely audible over the music. Someone bumped into me. I didn't mean to. You never mean to. Marcus's voice was low, controlled, the kind of quiet fury that terrified her more than shouting ever could. His hand moved to her elbow, guiding her through the crowd with the practiced ease of a devoted husband. To anyone watching, they looked like any other couple stepping away for a private moment. We're leaving. Now. Cassandra's heels clicked against the floor as he steered her toward the coat check, her mind racing through calculations she'd made 1,000 times before. It was only 9:30. If they left now, he'd have the entire drive home to berate her. Then the house, the bedroom. She thought of the bruises already hidden beneath her long sleeves, the ones on her ribs that made it hard to breathe when she laughed, though she rarely laughed anymore. Marcus, please, we don't have to go. I'll get them to clean it up. I'll pay for the bottle myself. His grip tightened, and she stopped talking. That was the rule. When his hand squeezed like that, she stopped talking. They were passing the grand staircase when a voice cut through the music, smooth and dark as aged whiskey. Leaving so soon? And here I thought the evening was just getting interesting. Cassandra looked up to find a man descending the stairs with the unhurried confidence of someone who owned not just the room, but everything and everyone in it. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her car. His dark hair was pushed back from a face that might have been handsome, if not for the sharp angles of his jaw, the cold assessment in his gray eyes, the thin scar that cut through his left eyebrow. She knew who he was. Everyone in the city knew Nikolai Volkov, even if they pretended not to. Especially if they pretended not to. Marcus's hand relaxed slightly on her arm. Mr. Volkov, I didn't realize you'd be attending tonight. Last-minute decision. Nikolai's eyes moved from Marcus to Cassandra, then down to where Marcus's hand gripped her arm. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those gray eyes. Your wife looks like she could use another drink, to replace the one she lost. We were actually just leaving, Marcus said, his salesman's smile firmly in place. Early morning tomorrow, you understand. I don't actually. Nikolai reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped directly in their path. It's Saturday night. What kind of early morning commitment could be more important than supporting the Children's Hospital Foundation? He looked at Cassandra again. What do you think, Mrs. Brennan? Should you stay? The question caught her off guard. No one ever asked what she thought. Certainly not in front of Marcus. She started, but Marcus cut her off. My wife agrees with me. Don't you, darling? The endearment came out sharp as a knife. Cassandra nodded, dropping her gaze to the floor. How convenient, Nikolai murmured. A marriage of such perfect agreement. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the exit. Don't let me keep you. They were almost to the door when Cassandra's heel caught on the carpet. She stumbled, and Marcus yanked her upright with enough force that she cried out, a small sound of pain she couldn't quite suppress. When she looked back, Nikolai Volkov was still watching them, his expression unreadable. Then a woman in red appeared at his elbow, whispering something in his ear, and he turned away. The drive home was exactly as bad as Cassandra had feared. Marcus drove in silence for the first 10 minutes, which was somehow worse than the yelling. She sat pressed against the passenger door, watching the city lights blur past, trying to make herself smaller. Do you enjoy embarrassing me? He finally asked, his voice conversational. Is that what this is? Some kind of passive-aggressive rebellion? No, Marcus, I told you, someone bumped into me. There's always an excuse with you. Always a reason why you can't do the simplest things right. He took a turn too fast, and she braced herself against the dashboard. My colleagues were there tonight. Important people. and you made me look like a fool. I'm sorry. You're always sorry. His hand shot out and grabbed her knee, squeezing hard enough to make her flinch. Maybe if you tried being less sorry and more competent, we wouldn't have these problems. She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood and said nothing. That was safest. Say nothing. Wait for it to pass. Survive until morning. When they got home, he went straight to his study with a bottle of scotch. Cassandra stood in the kitchen, still in her champagne-soaked dress, and felt something crack inside her chest. Not break exactly. She'd thought she was already broken. But this was different. This was the moment when she realized that if she didn't leave, she would die here. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. One way or another. She made it to the guest bathroom before she started crying, silent sobs that shook her whole body as she gripped the edge of the sink. In the mirror, her makeup was smudged, her carefully styled hair coming loose from its pins. She looked like a stranger. She looked like a ghost. The bruises on her arm were already darkening where Marcus had grabbed her. Monday morning came with gray skies and the kind of cold that seeped into your bones. Cassandra sat in her car outside the medical plaza for 15 minutes before she finally worked up the courage to go inside. The receptionist at Morrison Orthopedics looked up with a professional smile. Do you have an appointment? No, Cassandra clutched her purse tighter. I fell down the stairs yesterday. My wrist really hurts, and I thought I should have someone look at it. Oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me see if we can squeeze you in. The receptionist's fingers flew over her keyboard. We actually have an opening right now if you don't mind waiting just a few minutes. Dr. Morrison just finished with his previous patient. That would be wonderful. Thank you. The waiting room was quiet, decorated in soothing blues and grays. Cassandra filled out the new patient forms with her left hand since her right wrist was too swollen to hold the pen properly. When she got to the "How did this injury occur" section, she wrote, "Fell downstairs" in careful letters and tried not to think about how the stairs in question had been Marcus's hands. Mrs. Brennan, we're ready for you. The nurse who led her back was young and cheerful, taking her vitals while making small talk about the weather. Then she was alone in the examination room, staring at anatomy posters on the wall and fighting the urge to leave. The door opened and a man in a white coat entered, looking down at a tablet. Mrs. Brennan, I'm Dr. Morrison. I understand you had a fall and injured your... He looked up, and whatever he'd been about to say died on his lips. Dr. Morrison was younger than she'd expected, probably in his late 30s, with sandy brown hair and kind hazel eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your wrist, he finished quietly. May I take a look? She held out her arm, and he examined it with gentle fingers, rotating it carefully, pressing lightly to test for tenderness. His touch was clinical, professional, but there was something in his face that made her nervous. We'll need x-rays, he said. But I don't think anything is broken. How exactly did you fall? Down the stairs, at home. I lost my balance. He nodded slowly, then his eyes traveled to her other arm, where the sleeve of her cardigan had ridden up slightly. She saw the moment he noticed the bruises, 4 distinct oval marks where fingers had pressed deep. Mrs. Brennan, he said carefully, those bruises on your upper arm, did they happen in the same fall? Her heart started pounding. Yes. I hit the railing on the way down. I see. He made a note on his tablet. And the ones on your neck? Just at your collar line there. Her hand flew to her throat automatically. She'd thought she'd hidden those with makeup. Please, she whispered. Just treat my wrist. Dr. Morrison set down his tablet and pulled up a stool, sitting so they were at eye level. Mrs. Brennan, Cassandra. May I call you Cassandra? She nodded mutely. I'm going to be very direct with you, because I think you deserve honesty. In my 15 years as an orthopedic surgeon, I've seen thousands of fall injuries. I know what they look like. I know the bruise patterns, the swelling distributions, the mechanisms of injury. He paused. These injuries weren't caused by a fall. You don't know that. I do know that. His voice was gentle but firm. "The bruises on your arm are finger-shaped. 4 on one side, 1 on the other, consistent with someone gripping you very tightly. The pattern of defensive bruising on your forearms, the way you're protecting your ribs when you breathe, the old fracture I can see in your hand from the x-rays we took." He stopped, taking off his glasses to pinch the bridge of his nose. "Cassandra, I can't force you to tell me what's happening, but I can tell you what I see. And what I see is someone who needs help." Tears were streaming down her face now, and she couldn't stop them. "Please don't. If you report this, if you call anyone, he'll what?" She couldn't say it, couldn't make it real by speaking the words out loud. Dr. Morrison pulled out a tissue box and handed it to her. "I'm required by law to document what I observe, but what you choose to do with that documentation is up to you. I'm going to give you some information, shelters, hotlines, legal resources. You don't have to use them today. You don't have to use them at all. But I want you to have them, just in case you ever need them." He stood, moving toward the door. "Let me get those x-rays ordered. I'll be back in a few minutes." Alone again, Cassandra pressed tissues to her eyes and tried to breathe through the panic. This was it. This was the moment everything changed, whether she was ready or not. When Dr. Morrison returned, he wrapped her wrist in a brace, gave her a packet of information that she immediately shoved deep in her purse, and spoke to her like she was a person instead of a problem. It was the kindest anyone had been to her in years. "One more thing," he said as she was leaving. "I'm friends with the event coordinator for the Children's Hospital Foundation. She mentioned you were at the gala Saturday night." Cassandra froze. "Yes, my husband's company bought a table. I heard there was some excitement. Something about a Volkov situation?" Her throat went dry. "I'm sorry. A what?" "Nikolai Volkov." Dr. Morrison was watching her carefully. "He apparently took an interest in one of the guests. Someone he thought might be in trouble." "I don't understand." "Neither do I, completely. But Volkov's not the kind of man who takes an interest in things randomly. If he noticed something, there's usually a reason." He handed her his card. "My cell number is on there. Call me if you need anything at all." Cassandra made it to her car before the shaking started. She sat with her hands on the steering wheel, staring at the card Dr. Morrison had given her, and tried to understand what had just happened. Someone had noticed. After years of carefully applied concealer and long sleeves and practiced lies, someone had finally seen through it all. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or terrified. The answer came 3 days later. Cassandra was at the grocery store, trying to decide between 2 brands of pasta sauce, when a woman in a sleek black suit appeared beside her. "Mrs. Brennan? My name is Victoria Chen. I work for Nikolai Volkov. He'd like to speak with you." The jar of sauce slipped from Cassandra's hand and shattered on the floor, marinara spreading across the white tile like blood. What? Why?" He'd prefer to explain in person. "There's a car waiting outside." Victoria's expression was professionally neutral. "He wants to discuss a business opportunity." I don't do business. My husband handles. This doesn't involve your husband." Victoria handed her a napkin from her pocket. "Mr. Volkov specifically requested to speak with you alone. It's entirely your choice whether you come, of course, but he asked me to tell you that he believes you may find the conversation worthwhile." A store employee appeared with a mop, apologizing profusely even though the mess was Cassandra's fault. She stammered her own apologies, helped clean up the broken glass with shaking hands, and followed Victoria out to the parking lot like a woman in a dream. The car was a black Mercedes with tinted windows. Victoria opened the back door, and Cassandra found herself sliding across leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly mortgage. Nikolai Volkov sat in the corner, looking at his phone. He didn't look up as Victoria closed the door and climbed into the front seat beside the driver. "Mrs. Brennan, thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Did I agree?" Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "Your assistant made it sound more like a summons." He looked up then, and something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "Fair enough." "Let me rephrase. Thank you for not immediately running away screaming. I still might. Also fair. He set down his phone, giving her his full attention. I'm going to be very direct, because I suspect you've had enough people dancing around the truth lately. On Saturday night at the gala, I watched your husband hurt you. Not just at the end when you stumbled. Throughout the evening, the way he held your arm, the way you flinched when he moved too quickly, the way you apologized for breathing too loud. His voice was matter-of-fact, almost casual. I've made a career out of reading people, Mrs. Brennan. It's how I've stayed alive in my particular line of work, and you are being systematically destroyed by someone who promised to love you. Cassandra's lungs felt too small. Why do you care? That's an excellent question. He leaned back, studying her. Do you know what I do for a living? I know what people say you do. And what's that? Illegal things, dangerous things, things that get people killed. Accurate, if somewhat vague. He didn't seem bothered by the assessment. I run several businesses, some of which exist in gray legal areas. I employ people who would struggle to find legitimate work. I provide services that people need but can't obtain through traditional channels. And yes, sometimes people get hurt, usually people who deserve it. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand something. In my world, there are rules. We may break society's laws, but we have our own code. And one of those rules, one of my rules, is that you don't put your hands on someone weaker than you. You don't use your power to break someone who can't fight back. His voice had gone cold. Men like your husband offend me. They're cowards who hide behind wedding rings and social respectability while doing things that would get them killed in my world. Cassandra wrapped her arms around herself. If you're trying to scare me, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to help you. He pulled a folder from the seat beside him and handed it to her. This is Marcus Brennan's financial information. All of it. The accounts he thinks you don't know about. The debts he's hidden. The assets he's moved into his name alone. I'm giving this to you because I think you're planning to leave him. And I think he's planning to make sure you leave with nothing. She opened the folder with trembling hands. Page after page of bank statements, property records, investment accounts. It was everything. Years of financial secrecy laid bare. How did you... That's not important. What's important is that you now have leverage. You have proof of assets he's hidden, income he hasn't declared, debts he's incurred. Take this to a good lawyer and you'll walk away with everything you deserve. He'll kill me before he lets me take his money. No, he won't. Nikolai's voice was absolute. Because as of this morning, Marcus Brennan knows that you're under my protection. He received a very clear message from one of my associates explaining that any harm that comes to you, any harm at all, will be considered a personal insult to me. And trust me, Mrs. Brennan, your husband may be a monster, but he's not stupid. He knows exactly what that means. Cassandra stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. You threatened my husband. For me. Why? Because I could. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Because I have power, and I think it should be used to help people who need it. And because when I saw the way he hurt you at that gala, I realized I had a choice. I could ignore it, like everyone else in that ballroom, or I could do something about it. So this is what, Charity? Your good deed for the year? If it makes you feel better to think of it that way, sure. He pulled out a business card and pressed it into her hand. This is my lawyer, Elena Rodriguez, best divorce attorney in the city. Tell her I sent you, and she'll handle everything. She'll make sure you get what you deserve and that Marcus can't touch you again. Cassandra looked at the card, then at the folder full of secrets, then at the man who'd somehow decided to upend her entire life. I don't understand you. You don't have to understand me. You just have to decide what you want. Do you want to stay in that house, with that man, letting him chip away at you piece by piece until there's nothing left? Or do you want to leave? He met her eyes. I can't make that choice for you, but I can make it possible for you to choose. The driver pulled up in front of the grocery store where her car was parked. Victoria opened the door, letting in a rush of cold air. Think about it, Nikolai said. When you're ready, call Elena. She's expecting you. Cassandra climbed out of the car, clutching the folder to her chest. She watched the Mercedes pull away, disappearing into traffic, and wondered if she'd just made a deal with the devil. Then she looked down at the folder again, at years of Marcus's lies and manipulations documented in neat rows of numbers, and thought maybe the devil wasn't so bad after all. That night, Cassandra sat in her car outside her own house for 20 minutes before going inside. Marcus was already home, his BMW in the driveway, lights on in his study. She could imagine him in there, drink in hand, reviewing whatever presentation or proposal had consumed his day. She thought about the folder hidden in the trunk of her car, wrapped in a shopping bag and tucked under the spare tire. She thought about Nikolai Volkov's gray eyes and his casual, terrifying promise of protection. She thought about Dr. Morrison's gentle hands and the way he'd looked at her like she mattered. Then she thought about sleeping next to Marcus tonight, and every night after, for the rest of her life. She pulled out her phone and called the number on the business card. Rodriguez and Associates, Elena speaking. Hi, my name is Cassandra Brennan. Nikolai Volkov said I should call you. There was a brief pause, then Elena's voice came back warmer, almost relieved. Mrs. Brennan, yes, I've been expecting your call. Are you somewhere safe right now? I'm in my car, outside my house. Good, don't go inside tonight. I'm going to text you an address. It's a hotel downtown, one of Mr. Volkov's properties. There's a room reserved in your name. Go there now, pack a bag if you need to, but do not stay in that house. Elena's voice was firm, professional. Tomorrow morning, we'll meet and start the paperwork. Can you do that? Cassandra looked at her house, at the warm lights glowing behind closed curtains, at the facade of normalcy that hid so much pain. Yes, I can do that. Good. One more thing. Do you have any injuries that need immediate medical attention? She thought of Dr. Morrison, of his kind eyes and gentle questions. No, I'm okay. All right, text me when you get to the hotel. And Mrs. Brennan, you're doing the right thing. Cassandra ended the call and sat in the darkness, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Then she started the car, backed out of the driveway, and drove away without looking back. She didn't see Marcus standing at the study window, watching her leave with narrowed eyes and a phone pressed to his ear. The hotel room was beautiful, all soft grays and whites with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Cassandra stood at those windows for a long time, watching lights twinkle in the darkness, trying to believe this was real. Her phone rang at midnight. Unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Brennan, it's Nikolai Volkov. I heard you made the call. How did you... She stopped. Of course he knew. He seemed to know everything. Yes, I'm at the hotel. Good. I wanted to make sure you made it safely. He paused. And to tell you that your husband knows you're gone. He called several of your friends looking for you. My sources say he's angry, but contained. That will change once he realizes what you're planning. You need to be prepared for that. Fear spiked through her chest. Prepared how? Elena will handle the legal side. But there's something else you should know. In about 30 seconds, Marcus is going to receive an email containing photographs of him with his assistant, Angela Matthews. Photographs from hotels, restaurants, his office after hours. Emails and text messages. Credit card statements for jewelry he definitely didn't give to you. Nikolai's voice was clinical. It seems your husband has been having an affair for the past 2 years. What a shame that evidence of his infidelity has mysteriously surfaced just as you're filing for divorce. Cassandra sank onto the bed. You've been investigating him? For how long? Since Saturday night. I told you I'm very good at reading people. I saw enough at that gala to know I needed to dig deeper. He paused. The evidence of his affair will make the divorce much cleaner. Harder for him to claim you're the problem. Easier for you to claim emotional damages. Elena knows how to use it. Why are you doing this? She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. You don't even know me. No, I don't. But I know men like Marcus Brennan. I've known them my whole life. The difference is, in my world, they don't last long. His voice softened slightly. You deserve better than what he gave you, Mrs. Brennan. So I'm making sure you get it. The call ended, and Cassandra sat alone in the beautiful hotel room, holding a phone that seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Somewhere across the city, Marcus was opening an email that would destroy his carefully constructed life, and she couldn't bring herself to feel sorry for him at all. The divorce took 4 months, and they were the hardest 4 months of Cassandra's life. Marcus fought everything. He hired expensive lawyers who dragged out every deposition, contested every asset, challenged every claim. He showed up at the hotel twice, demanding to see her, before hotel security escorted him out. He called her parents, her friends, her former colleagues, spinning stories about her mental instability and emotional problems. But Elena Rodriguez was better than his lawyers, and she had evidence they couldn't refute. The photographs of Marcus and Angela were devastating. The financial records Nikolai had provided showed years of hidden assets and fraudulent statements. Dr. Morrison's medical documentation established a pattern of abuse that Marcus's lawyers couldn't explain away. And through it all, Nikolai Volkov remained a shadow presence in her life. She never saw him after that night in the car, but she felt his influence everywhere. Marcus's lawyers suddenly dropped aggressive tactics after a conversation with someone. A witness who'd been planning to lie for Marcus mysteriously changed his testimony. Building inspectors discovered violations at Marcus's office that resulted in hefty fines. He's protecting you, Elena explained over coffee one morning, making sure Marcus knows he can't win this fight. It feels like I'm not fighting my own battle. You are fighting it. You made the choice to leave. You made the choice to call me. Everything else is just making sure you have a fair chance. Elena smiled. Besides, Nikolai Volkov doesn't help people who don't deserve it. The fact that he's invested this much energy in your case says something about how he sees you. Cassandra didn't know what to do with that information, so she focused on rebuilding her life. She found an apartment, small but sunny, with big windows and no memories. She reconnected with friends she'd lost touch with, people Marcus hadn't approved of. She started seeing a therapist who helped her understand that none of it had been her fault. And slowly, painfully, she started to feel like herself again. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Thursday in October. Cassandra walked out of the courthouse with everything. Half of Marcus's assets, the house they'd shared, which she immediately put up for sale, and a restraining order that kept him 100 yards away at all times. Elena hugged her on the courthouse steps. You did it. You're free. Cassandra stood in the rain, feeling the water soak through her coat, and started laughing. Then crying. Then laughing again. She was free. That night, a bottle of champagne was delivered to her apartment. The card read, "For celebrating new beginnings, NV." She called the number he'd given her. It rang 4 times before he answered. Mrs. Brennan, I heard congratulations are in order. It's Ms. Brennan now, or just Cassandra. She twisted the phone cord around her finger. I wanted to thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay you for what you've done. You don't owe me anything. Consider it a gift. No one gives gifts like this without wanting something. He laughed, a low sound that made something flutter in her chest. Fair enough. How about this? Have dinner with me. What? Dinner. You, me, a restaurant of your choosing. No business, no lawyers, no divorce talk. Just 2 people sharing a meal. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because you're... She stopped, not sure how to finish that sentence. Because you're dangerous? Because you're complicated? Because I don't know how to be around someone who sees all of me and doesn't look away? I'm what? His voice was amused. Nothing. Never mind. She took a breath. Okay, dinner, but somewhere public, and I'm buying. You're buying? You just gave me half of Marcus's fortune. I can afford dinner. He laughed again. All right, Cassandra. You win. Pick the restaurant and text me the details. She hung up and stared at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to. Then she looked at the champagne bottle, the card signed with his initials, and thought about gray eyes that saw too much, and hands that had pulled her out of the darkness without asking for anything in return. Maybe it was time to stop being afraid. The restaurant was Italian, warm and intimate, with candles on every table and the smell of garlic and wine heavy in the air. Cassandra arrived 15 minutes early and immediately regretted every clothing choice she'd made. The black dress was too formal, wasn't it? Or not formal enough? Should she have done something different with her hair? Then Nikolai walked in, and she forgot to be nervous. He looked different in casual clothes, more human somehow. Dark jeans, a gray sweater that matched his eyes, no sign of the intimidating man in the expensive suit. He spotted her and smiled, and something warm spread through her chest. "You look beautiful," he said as he sat down across from her. "You look less terrifying." He raised an eyebrow. "Less terrifying. I'll take that as a compliment." They ordered wine, appetizers, pasta that Cassandra barely tasted because she was too focused on the man across from her. He asked about her apartment, her plans, what she wanted to do now that she was free. She asked about his businesses, carefully skirting the illegal ones, and was surprised by how thoughtful his answers were. "You're not what I expected," she said over tiramisu. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone colder, more calculating." "I am calculating." He said it matter-of-factly. "Everything I do is calculated, but that doesn't mean I don't feel things." "What do you feel about me?" The question came out before she could stop it. Bold and terrifying. Nikolai set down his fork and looked at her with those gray eyes that saw everything. "I feel like you're the bravest person I've met in a long time. I feel like you survived something that would have broken most people. And I feel like I want to know what comes next for you, because I think it's going to be extraordinary." That's a lot to live up to. You've already lived up to it. You left him. You fought for yourself. You won. He reached across the table, not touching her, just resting his hand palm up between them. An invitation, not a demand. Now the question is, what do you do with that victory? Cassandra looked at his hand, at the scars on his knuckles and the strength in his fingers, and thought about all the reasons she should be afraid of this man. Then she thought about the way he'd seen her pain and decided to help, the way he'd given her power instead of taking it, the way he'd asked for nothing except the chance to know her. She put her hand in his fingers closed around hers, warm and solid, and he smiled. There she is. There who is. The woman who looked Marcus Brennan in the eye and decided she deserved better. I was wondering when she'd show up. She's still figuring things out. That's okay. I'm patient. They stayed at the restaurant until closing, talking until the servers started giving them pointed looks and stacking chairs on tables. Nikolai walked her to her car, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back, and Cassandra felt safer than she'd felt in years. "Thank you for tonight," she said, fishing her keys from her purse. "I had a good time." "Me too." He stepped closer, not crowding her, just close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Can I see you again?" "Yes." "Good." He reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers brushing her cheek. The touch was feather-light, reverent, so different from the way Marcus had grabbed and pulled and hurt. "I'd like to take you somewhere. There's a property I own upstate, on a lake. It's quiet, peaceful. I think you might like it." "When?" "This weekend, if you're free. We could drive up Saturday morning, spend the day, come back Sunday." He must have seen the hesitation in her face because he added, "Separate bedrooms. No expectations. Just time away from the city." Cassandra thought about her empty apartment, about the walls that still felt too close sometimes, about the nightmares that woke her up at 3 a.m. Then she thought about gray eyes and gentle touches, and someone who looked at her like she was precious. "Okay," she whispered. "I'd like that." He smiled, pressed a kiss to her forehead that made her heart stutter, and watched as she got in her car. She could see him in her rearview mirror as she drove away, standing under a streetlight, hands in his pockets, looking like someone out of a movie. She called him when she got home. "Checking to make sure I made it safely?" he asked, amused. "No, I just wanted to hear your voice again." There was a pause. Then he said quietly, "I'm glad you called, Cassandra." They talked for another hour, about nothing and everything, until she finally fell asleep with the phone on her pillow and his voice in her ear. Saturday dawned bright and clear, the kind of autumn day that made everything seem possible. Nikolai picked her up at 8, driving a dark blue SUV instead of the Mercedes, and they headed north out of the city. The lake house was beautiful, all windows and wood, perched on a hill overlooking water that sparkled in the morning sun. Inside it was warm and comfortable, with soft furniture and a stone fireplace, and the kind of quiet that settled into your bones. "It's perfect," Cassandra breathed, standing at the window and watching leaves drift across the water. "I come here when I need to think," Nikolai said, setting their bags by the stairs. "When the city gets too loud and I need to remember who I am underneath all the business and chaos." "And who are you?" He came to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. "Still figuring that out, but I know who I'm not. I'm not the monster people think I am. I'm not my father, who built an empire on fear and cruelty. I'm not the person I had to become to survive." He looked at her. "I'm just someone trying to do better. Be better." "I think you're already better than you give yourself credit for." They spent the day walking along the lake, sitting on the dock with their feet dangling over the water, cooking dinner together in the big kitchen. Nikolai told her stories about growing up in his father's world, the things he'd seen and survived. Cassandra told him about her childhood, the small town she'd escaped from, the dreams she'd abandoned when she married Marcus. "What would you do now?" he asked as they sat by the fireplace that evening, the flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. "If you could do anything." "I used to paint," she said softly, "before Marcus. I was actually pretty good. I had a showing at a small gallery once, right before we got engaged." She smiled sadly. "Marcus said art was a nice hobby, but not a real career. Eventually, I just stopped. Start again. It's been years. So, start again." He shifted closer, taking her hand. "You have money now. You have time. You have freedom. Use it. Paint until your hands hurt. Make everything you've been holding inside. Show the world who Cassandra Brennan really is. What if I'm not any good anymore? Then you'll get good again. But I don't think that's the real question." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "The real question is, are you brave enough to try?" She looked at their joined hands, at the fire reflected in his eyes, at this man who'd somehow become the most important person in her life. "With you?" "Yes. I think I am." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away, but she didn't want to pull away. When his lips met hers, it was gentle, careful, like he was afraid she might break. She kissed him back, pouring years of loneliness and hope and fear into it, and felt something inside her finally heal. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I need you to know something. I'm not a good man, Cassandra. I've done things, hurt people, made choices that would horrify you if you knew the details. But when I'm with you, I want to be better. You make me want to be the man you see when you look at me." "I see you exactly as you are," she whispered. "And I'm not afraid." "You should be." "Why? Because you're dangerous?" She smiled. "You're the safest person I've ever known." He kissed her again, deeper this time, and she lost herself in it. They stayed by the fire until the logs burned down to embers, wrapped around each other, talking and kissing, and planning a future that neither of them had dared to imagine before. That night, Cassandra lay in bed in the room Nikolai had given her, staring at the ceiling and feeling more alive than she had in years. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Can't sleep. thinking about you." She smiled and texted back, "Me too." "Come down to the living room. I'll make hot chocolate." She found him standing at the window in pajama pants and a t-shirt, looking out at the moonlit lake. When he heard her footsteps, he turned and smiled. "Couldn't stay away?" "Apparently not." They drank hot chocolate on the couch, her feet in his lap, talking about everything and nothing until the sky started to lighten. And when he finally walked her back to her room and kissed her goodnight, Cassandra knew with absolute certainty that she was falling in love with him. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. 3 months later, Cassandra stood in a small art gallery in downtown, surrounded by paintings she'd created in a frenzy of inspiration and healing. Each canvas told a story of pain, of survival, of transformation. The gallery owner, a woman named Margaret who'd been immediately captivated by her work, had helped her put together a showing. And now, standing in a room full of strangers looking at her art, Cassandra felt exposed and powerful all at once. Nikolai appeared at her elbow, pressing a glass of champagne into her hand. "They love it. I told you they would. You have to say that. She stopped, not sure what label to put on what they were. Dating felt too small. Together felt too vague. "I'm what?" His eyes were warm with amusement. "You're biased." "Absolutely, but I'm also right." He gestured to a painting on the far wall, one she'd done in the aftermath of the divorce. Dark blues and grays, with a single streak of gold breaking through. "Margaret says that one's already sold." "Really? To whom?" "Me." He smiled at her stunned expression. "What?" "I want something to remember this moment. The moment Cassandra Brennan announced herself to the world." Before she could respond, Dr. Morrison appeared with his wife, both of them beaming. "Cassandra, these are incredible. I knew you had strength in you, but this..." He gestured at the paintings. "This is extraordinary. Thank you. For everything." She hugged him impulsively. "I wouldn't be here without you." "You would have found your way eventually. I just helped speed things along." He shook Nikolai's hand. "Mr. Volkov, good to see you supporting the arts." "Always," Nikolai said smoothly. As the evening wore on, Cassandra sold 12 paintings, collected business cards from 3 different galleries, and felt like she might actually have a future in this. Elena showed up with her husband, bearing flowers and congratulations. Margaret promised another showing in 6 months, and through it all, Nikolai stayed at her side, steady and solid, proud without being possessive, supportive without being overbearing. When the gallery finally closed and Margaret locked the doors behind the last guest, Cassandra sagged against Nikolai in exhaustion and exhilaration. "I can't believe that just happened." "Believe it. You earned every bit of it." He kissed the top of her head. "Come on. I have something to show you." He drove them to the lake house, which surprised her since it was late, and they both had work in the morning. But when they arrived, the house was lit up, candles glowing in every window. "What's all this?" "A celebration." He took her hand and led her inside. The living room had been transformed. More candles, flowers everywhere, and on the coffee table, a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. But it was the easel by the window that made her stop and stare. It held a painting she'd done of the lake, one of her favorites, and hanging from the top of the easel was a key. "What? The house is yours," Nikolai said quietly. "I had the deed transferred this morning. I know how much you love it here. And I thought..." He paused, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "I thought maybe you'd want a place that's just yours. A place where you can paint and think and be whoever you want to be." Cassandra turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "You gave me a house." "Yes." "Why?" "Because I love you." He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Because I want you to have everything you deserve. Because watching you rebuild yourself has been the greatest privilege of my life, and I want to keep watching. I want to be there for every painting, every showing, every moment of joy and success and frustration. I want all of it, Cassandra. If you'll let me." She kissed him then, deep and desperate and full of everything she couldn't put into words. When they finally pulled apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. "I love you too. I think I've loved you since that night in the car when you handed me a folder full of secrets and told me I deserved better. You did deserve better. You do deserve better." He cupped her face in his hands, "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you get it." "That's a long commitment." "I certainly hope so." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Cassandra's heart stopped. "I know it's soon. I know you might not be ready, but I also know that when I look at you, I see my entire future. So I'm asking, even though it's terrifying and potentially too fast and you might say no." "Yes?" He stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "Yes. Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is yes." He laughed, opening the box to reveal a simple platinum band with a single diamond. "You don't even know what the question is." "I don't care. My answer is still yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. Like everything about them fit perfectly, despite all the reasons it shouldn't. "Marry me," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Be my wife, my partner, my everything. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting you and supporting you and loving you the way you deserve to be loved." "Yes," she said again, and kissed him until they were both breathless. They were married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the lake house, with Elena and Dr. Morrison as witnesses. Cassandra wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers, and when Nikolai slid the wedding band onto her finger next to the engagement ring, she felt the last piece of her broken heart finally heal. That night, lying in bed with her husband's arms around her and moonlight streaming through the windows, Cassandra thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. The one who'd dropped a champagne glass and apologized for existing. The one who'd hidden bruises under long sleeves and convinced herself she deserved every hurt. That woman was gone, transformed into someone stronger, braver, more whole. And the man lying beside her, the dangerous, complicated, surprisingly gentle man who'd seen her pain and decided to fix it, had been the catalyst for it all. "What are you thinking about?" Nikolai murmured, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. "About how sometimes the devil isn't so bad after all." He laughed, pulling her closer. "Is that what I am? Your devil?" "No, you're my savior. My unexpected knight in dark armor." She turned in his arms, looking at him in the moonlight. "You're the person who taught me I deserved to be saved. You saved yourself, Cassandra. I just made sure you had the tools to do it. Then thank you for the tools, for the chance, for everything. Thank you for saying yes, for trusting me, for letting me be part of your new beginning." They fell asleep, wrapped around each other, and Cassandra dreamed of paintings yet to be created, adventures yet to be had, and a future that stretched out bright and beautiful and entirely hers. 6 months later, her second gallery showing sold out in 2 hours. A year after that, her work was featured in a major art magazine, and through it all, Nikolai was there, proud and supportive, loving her with the same fierce intensity he brought to everything else in his life. Sometimes, late at night, when they were at the lake house, Cassandra would stand at the window and think about the woman she'd been at that charity gala, the one who'd apologized for being alive, and she would smile because that woman had survived. More than survived. She'd transformed into someone Marcus Brennan had never been able to break, despite his best efforts. The scars remained, both physical and emotional, but they'd become part of her story, proof that she'd survived the unsurvivable and come out stronger on the other side. And when Nikolai came to stand beside her at the window, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest, Cassandra knew with absolute certainty that she'd found exactly where she belonged. Not despite the darkness she'd survived, but because of it. Because sometimes the worst moments of your life led you to the best ones. Sometimes the person who saved you wasn't a knight in shining armor, but a man in dark suits who understood that real power meant lifting others up, not tearing them down. And sometimes, just sometimes, the girl who'd learned to apologize for breathing learned to breathe freely again, surrounded by paint and love and possibility. "I love you," she whispered into the quiet night. "I love you too," Nikolai replied, and she felt his smile against her hair. "My brave, beautiful, extraordinary wife." And as the moon reflected off the lake and stars filled the sky above them, Cassandra Volkov, no longer Brennan, never Brennan again, finally believed that she deserved every bit of the happiness she'd found. She'd survived. She'd escaped. She'd thrived, and she'd never apologize for taking up space in the world again.